Hello YouTube, Scant the Wolf here, back with another video for your viewing pleasure. Here it is, top 5 worst albums of the year so far in 2024. And this is a year-end of list. I know a lot of people like gotten these out super early and stuff like that. Like this is list season basically. And the reason I did 5 is because there wasn't that much that came out this year compared to previous years and stuff like that. So you're gonna have to deal with 5. And with an honorable mention too, I might as well get that out of the way as well. So let's get with the honorable mention. As I Lay Dying, Through Storms Ahead. This is a very generic album from the band As I Lay Dying, which has had a lot of controversy this year, which I didn't even cover because I don't care about that kind of stuff. But the fact is, this is their most boring stuff yet. Like, honestly, if they break up after this album, um, they should break up after this album because, of course, not only because of the stuff that they've been doing, like Tamil and Beasts have been doing to like tarnish the band name and stuff like that, but also because the stuff isn't very good as well. And the fact is, it's just no. This wouldn't even fit with their like best stuff, and even the best stuff from the era that they came from in the metalcore scene. So throw that away. Now we get to the actual list. Number 5, Trapped with their album The Fall. And The Fall is certainly an adept title for this album. It's certainly an apt title because, yeah, this album, once again, like a lot of Trapped albums, doesn't really do anything. It's just misdirection. It's just directionless. It's just misguided. It's just, like with the antics that happened 4 years ago when the COVID thing came out, they just basically just who would want to listen to this? People know what this band's like. People know that this band is for hate and stuff like that, as indicated from those antics and stuff, and even like there are shades and glimmers of that previously. But this one, it doesn't even have that surrounding it. It's just boring. It's just nothing music. No one really cares really about this kind of stuff that's coming from Trap. This sort of like not really that aggressive kind of music. And it's just like it has no meat to it whatsoever. It's just plain. It's just like no one's gonna listen to this stuff. No one's gonna listen to Shadow Work, which was a little bit worse because of the time that it came out. But like the fact is, no one's really gonna care about this album, and certainly no one's gonna care about Trapped going forward. They should probably break up. It is highly forgettable. At least some stuff in the early days, I could see some decent guitar work and stuff like that. But the fact is, I'm gonna say the fact is a lot, but seriously, the fact is, this is a terrible album. Number 4, Falling in Reverse, Popular Monster. This is going to be a pariah on many people's lists. Popular in the fact that, 1, yes, it did sell a lot of copies, of course. And 2, well, the reason why it would sell a lot of copies is because a lot of people are just curious to buy it because Ronnie Raggy is such a prominent figure for all the wrong reasons. And it's popular on people's lists because it's going to be high on a lot of people's lists. For me, it's at number 4 because 1, I don't feel it's as bad as stuff that I've heard. Listen, I don't put I've had a track record of not putting the most hated albums at number 1 or whatever. That's just something that happens with me. I didn't even put Hardy's Quit on this list because it's not really rock or metal or anything like that. It's kind of just a hybrid. But this is different. Even though it has Jelly Roll of all people on it, which Jelly Roll is better than anything on this album for sure. Yeah, the album 10 tracks doesn't really do much, and then Rodney Radke's personality is just very prominent on this album, which is of course a big turn off for this album, which it just doesn't work. Period. It's just 10 singles that we've heard. Actually, maybe more than half of the album is just singles that's been released for the past 5 years, including the title track. put it all together on an album, and it is totally like this is not the best stuff in this genre. There's a lot more stuff that's actually thought provoking and smarter than this, obviously. And for a person who's very confrontational, very unapologized and stuff like that, like it's just no. I'm not gonna listen to this album and get any enjoyment out of it. No, just there's not really a highlight on the album either. It's just not very good. That's the truth. Number three, If I Were You, With or Without. And if I were you, I would not check this album out because of all the metalcore that I've heard this year, all the generic stuff that hogs Spotify playlists and just like does this and that to just exist. This is the worst. This is the most generic. This is the most cliche lyric written stuff I've heard this year. This is the most bland, nothing music. The same production style, the same vocal style. And yeah, just no. It's just like it's just what it is. It's just nothing. Like there's If I Were You is not a band that's like is not going to innovate any corners of metalcore. If you didn't know who they were, then I wouldn't blame you for that because like I'm deep. I usually like to try to find good metalcore band, like unique metalcore bands and stuff that would have some sort of like creativity, or at least something like that's a good melody or good rhythm to it. This from If I Were You doesn't have that. If you look at their name, you think, well, this is going to be generic, and then Ludi Da, I guess it definitely showed itself really well that it is a generic album. It's terrible. It is atrocious, and I don't think I'll ever listen to it again, and I don't think I'll ever listen to this band again because it, other than if I go on a Spotify playlist and see, ooh, If I Were You came out with an album, click on it, and I'm like, well, I regret that. And I regret listening to this and looking up the lyrics because it is infuriating. Now, number two, we have a situation here. Dead by April, The Affliction. This was going to be the number one worst album of the year. This was going to be the worst album of the year. One album. There was one album this year that managed to top it. And that is not a good, that is not a good, like, that is not a good distinction for this album because, wow. Dead by April made a disaster of an album this year. This is a disaster by a lot of things, by a lot of standards. Just a combination of some of the worst traits in this like kind of mellow death-esque kind of sound. Like, Dead by April, like their gimmick was that they were like boy bandy, like kind of like a heavy metal NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, and whether you like those kind of cheesy like bands or not, whether like you look at that and go whether you go like really like whether you look at all those like bands from like the 2000s and it's just cringe or whatever, like you got to admit like it is something that could carry them. Like, I mean, the self-titled wasn't terrible. They've had some songs that have worked all right in the years since then. The self-titled wasn't really that bad of an album, but wow. Like, after all the lineup changes and after so much, like, that happened with this band, like, they haven't had an album released in 7 years, and the fact is that this is just a mess. This is not a complete album. And they've been teasing this for quite a while, of course, with some very underwhelming singles that are just... It just feels so digital, and it's so processed. And that's a good term. It is so, like, emotionless of an album. And there's just nothing... No conviction, no, like... There's nothing really to it with the vocals, especially in the scream department. I mean, like... It is just so try hard. It is like faux threat signal esque kind of vocals that are almost comically bad in a way. Like it is just. I mean, it's not like what was inescapable or something. Whatever that album was, their second album. It's not like that where it's like almost laughably bad, but it's this is like really disastrously bad. And then the lyrics, man, save the cheerleader. Is this a friggin' Disney Channel thing or something like that? Save the cheerleader. What is this? Some emo anime fan saving a cheerleader from some like some monster or something like that. I mean, like, what in the world, Dead by April? Like, I mean, you weren't even like. I mean, lyric department isn't even your strongest point. I mean, take a look at the last album with there was a song about like wanting to punch someone in the face or something like that. But like this is just like takes it to a new level. And then just not really much to this album. And then like the fact they have bands that no one's ever heard of, like Smashed into Pieces, The Day We Left Earth. Like who's heard of these bands? No one's heard of these bands. It's just like and Smashed into Pieces sounds like the kind of band that would be on a year-end worst list. Would it be on one of those like hard rock Spotify playlists and stuff? You just click on them, you go on you know like underground bands and stuff, and then you listen to it. Like this is just like from this is kind of like bands like No Resolve or something like that. Like they shouldn't even be like collaborating so much with Dead by April. Like they actually need to prop them up. Like there's some like manic. There's like a doll or something like that. It needs to be propped up because it's falling down or something. They're like a bookend. And this is it's not even good with that. I mean, there's no CD copies of this album, and like nobody would want this on their shelf. I mean, like because one, I think everybody, all the people that would want this album would probably just have it on their computer. Oh, yeah, I have the album. Well, this what this album sucks. It really does suck a lot. Like everybody knows a lot better than to produce a disaster like this. I mean, like even the fact that like there's so much that this band could have done. They could have just not released an album, or they could have just like done nothing. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. And the number one, the crown thorn of garbage. Here we go. This is the one that took the cake this year, the garbage cake, the sewage cake, if you want to. I don't usually make like bathroom humor in my videos, but like this one really deserves it. Flat Black, Dark Side of the Brain. I'm gonna say something, you guys. This album legitimately angered me to no end. This album just infuriated me. It is seriously terrible. And if you don't know the name Flat Black, you're about to, and honestly, you're gonna have to wish you didn't, because Flat Black is a terrible band, and it's a Jason Hook side project. Yes, the guy from Five Finger Death Punch who left the band, one of them. There's already another one, and I don't want to cover the band that the other guy was in or whatever, but Jason Hook, the guitarist for Five Finger Death Punch, went to this band. Flat Black formed it, and honestly, the fact that this is generic hard rock would have been enough for this album to be terrible. It would have. The fact that there's nothing remotely worth writing home about would have been, at least, would have made it make this list. I mean, like, it wouldn't have been, like, number one. It would have been somewhere. But the fact is, Jason Hook is a terrible guitarist. A lot of you may disagree because maybe a lot of you may think he's good, but he is so unadventurous. He is so unwilling to do anything outside of his norm that it's just ear grating for me. And like I listened to this after hearing a terrible Raw single that he was on, and that was garbage. And then I hear this, and this is just like like diet 5 Finger Death Punch. Only the thing is, like, they don't need these solos. They do not need these songs. Do not need these asinine solos that like are so like formulaic that they end like in like they go up to a high pitch, like they do the same thing every song. Jason Hook does the same thing every song, and people in the bio of like something, it's like, oh, this is his passion. Well, if his passion is just trying to annoy the listener, just make them like feel triggered, then that's certainly a thing for you. They do not need it. Jason Hook does not need to just go in and just make this album worse. That I would rather listen to a freaking hair metal album than this garbage, this trash. I'd rather listen to like some southern rock band or some. I'd rather listen to like, like maybe like the last 5 Finger Death Punch album than this album. Maybe that's not the best call because And Justice for None is a terrible album, is an awful album. Like, and they've had so many awful albums in the past, but I'd rather listen to like, I don't know, like last year's worst album than this album. I'd rather listen to like a lot of things. A War You Cannot Win by All That Remains rather than this. I'd rather listen to like, I don't know. I'd rather listen to like so many different things than listen to this album that's terrible. This album's terrible. It's just like everything about it like just screams like the worst hard rock thing you could possibly imagine. And I've been waiting to get this out for so long because like it's just I've just waited so long to get this out of my chest, but it's just poor Keith Wallen, man. Keith Wallen and Corey Taylor, how did they get in this band? Probably, how did they like get roped into this? And they don't need to. Corey Taylor could be doing something with Slipknot, or maybe even one of his like solo projects or something, even though those haven't been remarkable. Keith Wallen should be with Breaking Benjamin, which Breaking Benjamin's making way better music than this, obviously. Like, and then Keith Wallen's solo stuff is also pretty solid, I think. I'd have to say that album that came out this year was pretty solid enough. Short little review there, but it's definitely better than this. That's for sure. Definitely. Like, Flat Black. This is flat garbage. This is flat awfulness. Yeah, that's all I can say. So bad I lost my voice. Not lost my voice, but like I need water. Here you go. Top 5 worst albums of this year. Hope you enjoyed this video. And we will be back shortly with another video. The top 10 best albums of the year. Ones that are far better than the Flat Black and pretty much anything on the list. This is Captain Wolf signing out. Take care.